Are you sure the universe even exists? Seriously? Because according to all the laws of physics, it probably shouldn't. And yet, here we are. We watch different videos. We inhale, we exhale, we exist. Why? This is one of the strangest mysteries in science. And when you learn the possible answer, you'll have even more questions.
Everyone knows that the speed of light in a vacuum is the ultimate speed of any motion in the universe. This speed is almost 300,000 kilometers per second, and that's how fast light particles, photons, travel. Nothing in our universe can move faster than light, because that would contradict not only the theory of relativity, but also the very laws of time. For an object that has reached a speed faster than light, time would literally start to run backwards. But what if I told you that there are hypothetical particles whose speed not only exceeds the speed of light, but for which time, literally speaking, flows backwards? Moreover, their existence actually fits within the special theory of relativity rather than contradicting it. How can that be? We'll find out today. The sequel. So we're going to talk about tachyons, hypothetical particles that have the ability to reach faster than light speeds. The very possibility of the existence of such particles was first proposed by Robert Ehrlich and Arnold Sommerfeld independently of each other. The term tachyon itself comes from the Greek language, where tachy means fast, and it was proposed by Gerald Feinberg in 1967. The theory of tachyons has its own terminology. For example, particles that move at speeds lower than the speed of light, that is, all particles in our universe except photons, are called tachyons. Photons in this theory are called luxons. So where did the hypothesis that tachyons might exist come from? The thing is, in natural sciences, people often think in reverse. Is it possible to prove that tachyons do not exist? No. But how can they exist if it contradicts the theory of relativity and common sense in general? As we know, objects that have mass cannot move at the speed of light. Why does this happen? Remember the famous formula? E equals m times c squared. This formula from the theory of relativity connects the energy required for motion with the mass and speed of an object. Thus, for something with mass to reach the speed of light, the required energy would have to approach infinity, which would create a lot of paradoxes. The only particles in the universe that can travel at the speed of light are, of course, photons, which have no mass. But how could tachyons even hypothetically exceed the speed of light? The speed of light, as the maximum speed in the universe, is reached only by particles that have no mass. If photons have zero mass, does that mean tachyons have negative mass? It sounds incredible, but that's exactly the direction scientists are thinking in. They suggested that tachyons might have what's called imaginary mass. What does that mean? Literally, imaginary mass is the strength, degree, or measure of how much matter slows down, not acceleration as we're used to. To fly faster than the speed of light, you need to introduce the concept of negative inertia. This is where the tachyon comes in with its imaginary mass. This mass doesn't slow the particle down, but rather accelerates it. That's why the tachyon's faster than light speed can be partially explained by its imaginary mass. The oddities of tachyons don't end there. If ordinary normal particles accelerate when they gain energy and slow down when they lose it, with tachyons it's the opposite. They should slow down as they gain energy and speed up as they lose it. This leads to the problem of charged tachyons, because charged particles moving at superluminal speeds emit energy in the form of Cherenkov radiation. It's also called Vavilov-Cherenkov radiation. Charged tachyons would lose energy even in a vacuum and would move faster and faster, reaching speeds impossible for any kind of analysis, let alone optical perception. Simply put, when a tachyon flies through matter, it loses energy because it collides with atoms. But as it loses energy, it accelerates, which makes the collisions even stronger and happen more often. In theory, these collisions should cause further energy loss and consequently further acceleration. A vicious cycle occurs, and the tachyon naturally accelerates to infinite speed on its own. It's practically a perpetual motion machine inside the particle itself. Do you think that's where the list of unbelievable things about tachyons ends? Not at all. In 1970, astrophysicist Gregory Benford and his colleagues pointed out that the existence of tachyons is a direct path to acknowledging the existence of a time paradox. This is related to the possibility of these particles sending information into the past. The very idea of sending messages backward in time appeared in physics as early as 1907, when Albert Einstein proposed the theory that if you exceed the speed of light, you can send a message into the past. But Benford developed this theory using tachyons and presented it to the public in the form of a playful story about Alice and Bob. Let's suppose Alice and Bob made an agreement. Alice will send Bob a message at 3 o'clock if she doesn't receive a message from him at 1 o'clock. After receiving a message from Alice at 2 o'clock, Bob immediately sends a message to Alice into the past so that she receives it at 1 o'clock. But the second exchange of messages will only take place if the first exchange does not happen. Gregory Benford called the hypothetical communication device between Alice and Bob a tachyonic anti-telephone. If the existence of tachyons is proven, can you imagine what incredible possibilities this will open up for humanity? Tachyons are common in science fiction. In Frank Herbert's immortal science fiction novel Dune, there is a tachyon network that allows instant communication and even control of particles in the universe. Tachyons play a major role in the plot of the television epic Star Trek. If we leave science fiction aside, at the moment some physicists believe that tachyons may have existed at the time of the Big Bang, violating causality, but now they are gone. Moreover, tachyons may be directly connected to the Big Bang itself and to the very possibility that it happened. But how? There is a theory that before the Big Bang, the universe existed in a state of false vacuum, where tachyons were present. But their presence meant that this was not the lowest energy state of the system, and therefore the system was unstable. At some moment, a tiny gap appeared in the fabric of space-time, representing the true vacuum. The gap began to grow and a bubble appeared. Outside the bubble, tachyons still existed, but inside it, there were none. As the bubble grew, the universe we know appeared, a universe without tachyons. That was the Big Bang. So tachyons can exist, but somewhere outside our universe. Who knows? The search for these mysterious particles never stops for a moment, but so far it hasn't yielded any positive results. In 2011, when scientists from CERN conducted an experiment called OPERA related to the study of neutrino oscillations, it seemed that the answer was very close. Something incredible happened during the experiment. The scientists claimed that they had discovered particles traveling faster than the speed of light. However, it soon became clear the mysterious particles weren't tachyons, but just the result of inaccuracies and system errors.
И ошибок в системе синхронизации.
So, does the most mysterious of all particles actually exist in nature? Will we be able to get an answer to this question in the near future? Anything is possible. Science is advancing by leaps and bounds, and much of what was once only hypothetical and seemed like science fiction has eventually been proven and become an undeniable fact. One thing can be said for sure. The possibility of discovering tachyons, and most importantly, Finding a way to interact with these particles is the path to that very future, which for now, we can only observe on the pages of science fiction novels. If you look closely into the inky darkness of the night sky, then in good weather, even with the naked eye, you can see a huge number of stars shining through the cosmic haze. Hundreds of thousands or even millions of light years lie between us, and the light from some galaxies still hasn't reached Earth. At the same time, humanity firmly believes that somewhere out there, in the darkness, intelligent beings must exist. Who are they? Demigods or beings no smarter than an ant? The Fermi paradox keeps pointing out, with amazement, the lack of any visible signs of alien activity at any stage of development. But honestly, we don't need any theories. We can see for ourselves that space around us is absolutely empty, and that's unsettling. On the other hand, there's the Drake equation, a specially derived formula that determines the number of extraterrestrial civilizations in our galaxy. If we believe it, we can conclude that intelligent life is quite a common phenomenon in the universe. The equation takes into account many factors, including the distance of a planet from its parent star, the likelihood of single-celled life evolving into intelligent beings, and the type of star around which potentially inhabited celestial bodies orbit. This raises another equally important question. What would extraterrestrial life look like if it exists at all? It's no secret that humans tend to use themselves as the standard for everything, so our theories are clearly marked by anthropocentrism. Whether this is bad or acceptable, only time will tell. But if we take the development vector of human civilization as the basis for the search for extraterrestrial intelligence, we end up with the Kardashev scale. This well-known Soviet physicist proposed classifying societies based on their level of technological advancement. According to this classification, we don't even reach the level of a Type 1 civilization. That is, human society, which has gone through a complex journey from taming Prometheus's gift and manipulating digging sticks to launching the Hyperloop vacuum train and attempting to colonize the Red Planet, still hasn't managed to harness the energy not only of its own star, but even of its home planet. But let's set aside the pathos and get to the point. According to scientists, based on the generally accepted Kardashev scale, what might highly developed civilizations capable of contacting humans look like? For example, Enrico Fermi suggested that potential neighbors might be as different from us as an ant colony is from human society. Now you'll understand what he meant. So, in front of us is a level 0 civilization, that's us. According to Carl Sagan's calculations, we've made about 2/3 of the way toward number 1, but we haven't reached the coveted goal yet. This means that for humanity to move to a higher level, we need to learn how to fully utilize the energy potential of our own planet. For now, we only consume 0.17 of what's possible. According to the most optimistic forecasts, we won't reach 100% for at least another millennium. If a neighboring civilization is, for example, at the same stage as us, it's no wonder why their signals are inaccessible to Earth's receivers. Let's move on to a Type 1 civilization, which has harnessed the energy of its own planet for its benefit. But it's hard to stop technological progress and evolution, so beings living at this pace will be forced to conquer the surrounding celestial bodies. So, does that mean we're skipping steps right now by trying to colonize Mars? But that's not the point. At least in science fiction novels, a Type 1 civilization is practically a god. This means that our galactic neighbors would be able to fully control their planet, influence the weather, stop tsunamis and earthquakes, prevent volcanic eruptions. In other words, be complete masters of their own celestial body. Since even this is beyond our reach, it's frightening to imagine what would happen if Earth were visited by aliens who have reached the second level of civilization. They simply wouldn't take humanity seriously, treating us like a swarm of bees or mosquitoes. Accordingly, the extinction of the human population wouldn't be worth a dime in their eyes. So who are they, the beings of a second-level civilization? From our perspective, they could be called gods. Moreover, most world religions will likely completely change their canons and priorities after such contact. Right now, the concept of God is ephemeral, something accepted on faith. But what will happen when almighty beings literally descend to us from the heavens? How will this affect the consciousness of most members of the human race? But we've gotten sidetracked again. A Type 2 civilization, according to the Kardashev scale, actively uses the energy of its parent star. For this, a structure called a Dyson sphere, or Dyson swarm, is required. Such a colossal structure is described in Larry Niven's novel, Ringworld. At this stage, we can't even dream of such a structure, since it would take centuries to build. In addition, it would literally require dismantling some planets of the solar system down to the last atom. Humanity doesn't have the knowledge, the technology, or the time for that. But the inhabitants of a Type 2 civilization are not only capable of building a megastructure that captures even the smallest energy emissions from their star, but also of fully inhabiting this superstructure. Representatives of a civilization with a level still unattainable for us would feel like the full-fledged masters of a planetary system. They would use asteroids for their own needs, adjust their orbits, shamelessly alter the paths of wandering comets, and control the rotation of neighboring celestial bodies, in general going about their daily business. We hope it goes without saying that a Type 3 civilization is beyond our comprehension, since the all-powerful beings who created it are capable of harnessing the energy of an entire galaxy. They have an established system for extracting, storing, and using the energy resources of any galaxy in the universe. The inhabitants of this titanic conglomerate can merge stars, mix planetary systems, harness the energy of supernova explosions, and even create new stars themselves. Huge planets and their rocky satellites become ordinary building blocks in the hands of the inhabitants of this civilization, used for everyday needs. It's like Minecraft on steroids. Space biome. What conclusion comes to mind? Despite the obvious insignificance of our technological breakthroughs, Earth's astronomers should be able to detect traces of the activities of the mentioned civilizations through their telescopes. For example, the debris of titanic structures or constantly changing luminosity in specific locations. Tell me, for heaven's sake, why have we never observed anything like that? Are Earthlings really alone in the universe? But let's continue, since this isn't even the limit. There are still 3 more types of civilizations ahead of us, which will surely not notice the presence of the human race. After all, you don't pay attention to a crawling ladybug. The previous worlds seemed unreal to us, and the beings living in them seemed like gods. Now let's turn our attention to the 4th level of civilization. Anything is possible here. First and foremost, it's about harnessing the energy of the universe. The horizons that open up as a result are truly mind-blowing. Super beings are capable of designing structures of unimaginable scale, altering the laws of the macrocosm, and manipulating the space-time continuum. Essentially, they could become immortal. However, this suspiciously resembles a dystopia. Are you expecting a description of 5th and 6th type civilizations? In short, it's something unimaginable, far beyond human comprehension. Both of the mentioned worlds are like children who have outgrown their own clothes. Civilizations living in several universes and outside of time. Sounds crazy? But that's exactly how the legendary scale defines them. Abstract beings who manage to achieve such an effect know exactly what string theory is, how to destroy entropy, or how to change the structure of reality. Probably many of you are now thinking, maybe representatives of a 6th level civilization are the very gods we believe in. We won't try to convince you otherwise. Theoretically, this is possible because considering their omnipotence, such conglomerates could independently create communities of other types. Is that really more difficult than regulating universal chaos? Let's leave the viewers in intellectual confusion because it takes time to realize the greatness of our possible neighbors. On Earth, there have been people born who were so intellectually advanced and progressive in their thinking that it seemed as if they had come from the future. Nikola Tesla was such a prodigy. There have also always been people who, for selfish reasons, could abandon any idea, even if it would allow humanity to make instant technological advances. Nikola Tesla gave the world many discoveries. He predicted the appearance of robots, demonstrated an experiment on wireless transmission of electricity, and invented the so-called death ray. Especially mysterious were his attempts to use the ether, the all-pervading medium that fills everything that exists. Tesla fiercely refuted the categorical, possibly paid for by Kassenstein, belief in the existence of the ether. Tesla was amazed at how one could assume that radio waves exist, but the medium that carries them does not. To prove his point, the great scientist suggested looking at the Michelson-Morley experiment, which supposedly proved that the ether is a fiction from a different perspective. The mentioned experiment consisted of detecting the movement of the ether relative to the Earth. It was not detected, and based on this, many scientists abandoned the concept. Tesla proved in his manuscripts that this was a hasty and ill-considered decision. Even Aristotle believed in an endless source of free energy. We just need to learn how to use it properly. Tesla knew how to do it. But with his death, the knowledge of the source of universal prosperity died as well. By the way, ether was mentioned in the works of René Descartes, Christian Huygens, and Isaac Newton. Let's look at a few statements from the manuscripts of Nikola Tesla. Why is ether so difficult to detect? The scientist said ether's density is thousands of times higher than air's. It is known that the density of a substance directly affects the speed at which waves propagate through it. Ether is electrically neutral, so its interaction with the material world is extremely insignificant. Moreover, considering such a high density, our world is practically intangible for ether. How can an ordinary person sense the presence of ether? It's simple. During rapid acceleration or sudden braking. That is, gravity is actually the manifestation of the ether in the surrounding world. You came from the ether, and to the ether you shall return. Tesla believed that the universe originated from the ether, and that stars and planets are areas of lower pressure in this substance. That is, everything in the world is made from the ether. The substance constantly tends to contract, while the material world actively resists this. But when the matter of our universe loses its electric charge, the world will be flattened by the ether, which will return to its original state. Why did the Michelson-Morley experiment fail? To prove the incorrectness of the interpretation of the experiment's results, Tesla gives a clear example. Imagine your boat is being sucked into a whirlpool. Try to determine the movement of the boat relative to the vortex. You won't notice it because the speed of the water and the boat are identical. If you extrapolate this example, replacing the boat with our planet and the vortex with an etheric hurricane swirling around celestial bodies, then everything falls into place. Ether and the unveiling of ancient mysteries. Thanks to a deep exploration of the possibilities of ether, it would be possible to understand how ancient people without any technology moved megaliths. How did the primitive Dogon people learn about Sirius? What did the Egyptians use to build and decorate the famous pyramids? And much more from the category of the unexplained. And now the main question, why is it forbidden to mention the ether? Moreover, even now, such scientists are harshly ridiculed by their colleagues. Persecution started in the early 20th century, and the research was abruptly halted. A lot of artificial obstacles were created, including staff reductions, laboratory closures, and denial of patents. Propaganda work began to discredit the ether as a source of eternal and, most importantly, free energy. It might seem illogical, After all, it's the opportunity to create a perpetual motion machine, humanity's dream. The indirect cause of this paradoxical situation was Tesla himself. His advanced experiments worked wonders. They illuminated the way for ships using the ether. A car powered by infinite energy appeared. The scientist's mistake was that he told wealthy industrialists about his discovery. For a while, Tesla's innovative projects were even funded, but then everything suddenly stopped. In 1898, Nikola Tesla attached an unknown device to a beam in the attic of a building and calmly turned the apparatus on. It was an oscillator that made the building itself and its surroundings shake. People ran out into the street in panic. The houses were vibrating. The scientist casually stated that this device was capable of destroying the Brooklyn Bridge. And if you calculate the vibrations precisely and build a device of the appropriate size, it might even be possible to split the Earth itself. Later, realizing the danger of his invention, Tesla smashed the device with a hammer. A car powered by ether. One day, the scientist ordered a limousine to have its gasoline engine replaced with an electric motor and attached a small box to it. The car was tested for a week. It didn't need to be charged and could reach speeds of up to 150 kilometers per hour. When the astonished spectators asked the scientist what fuel the car ran on, Tesla replied, "On ether," and he didn't explain anything else. The wealthy, who tried with all their might to hold on to power, increase their fortunes, and create a consumer society, realized that the emergence of a free energy resource would put an end to their plans once and for all. As a result of a conspiracy among industrialists, the media began a campaign that went down in history as the Overton window. The technology was aimed at substituting concepts. Ancient knowledge had to be ridiculed, and even mentioning it was forbidden. People accustomed to the material world rejected knowledge of the void, which contained nothing. Figures like Einstein began to rise to the scientific Olympus, successfully steering physics in a completely different direction. The outcome is predictable. In 1920, at a conference in the German spa town of Bad Nauheim, the ether was finally abolished. Modern society knows almost nothing about the ether. As an echo of the past, only the expression "to go on the air" remains. The source of inexhaustible energy was forgotten, and the world is filled with extreme poverty and incredible wealth, competition for resources, and consumer markets. All of this is artificially explained by the media with the concept of a crisis, although it is simply a struggle for leadership and dishonest competition. We hope that the day will come when the world remembers about the ether. The main thing is that it won't be too late. As long as a person travels from the point called birth to the station called death, he is unable to stop thinking. This means that new theories will appear and disappear. And perhaps in someone's fevered imagination, the very one, the only true theory, will arise, which will explain the structure of the world clearly and simply, like all things genius. The Hubble channel is waiting for your opinions, likes, and subscriptions, as well as your suggestions for the topics of future videos.